What are 5 things that if you don't do are going to cause you potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars when you're evaluating your mobile home park to buy? Stick around, I'm going to share what those 5 things are and how you can avoid getting yourself into a situation where they end up costing you on your first or second or third mobile home park that you're buying. Hey everyone, my name is Tyson. I'm a commercial real estate broker and investor. And in this video, we're going to talk about 5 crucial items that are important for you to look at when evaluating a mobile home park. Now, most people go through and they know the basics when it comes to due diligence, right? We get a list of all the financials from the owner. We look at the bank statements. We check the rent rolls. We know what we're looking at when it comes to the things that we should be evaluating. But the mobile home park class is a special class in and of itself, and there's things that we want to pay attention to that there aren't things that you would generally see in other asset classes. If you stick around till the end, I'm going to give you the number 5 tip, which actually is a pretty big one and could potentially make or break your deal. So stick around, but we're going to jump in. Number 1, the first thing, and it may sound obvious, but I can't tell you how many investors miss this or actually don't pay attention, but it's the roads. When you're actually going on site to look at a park, and by the way, you should always go on site to look at a park, but pay attention to the roads. Walk the roads, look at the sidewalks, evaluate the gutters, the storm drain, things like that. Those are all important things, and most people just gloss over because they're too busy looking at the actual property, whether it be the homes or the landscaping or things like that. Roads can cost hundreds of thousands of dollars if not treated properly. The other problem you're going to run into is that if you have any root exposure or asphalt that's been brought up because of tree roots, that's going to present a trip hazard, and anytime the insurance inspector comes out, they're probably going to ding you for that, and they're actually going to make you fix it anyway. Pay attention to the roads. Is there alligator cracking? Is there potholes? Are there things that need to be repaired? Ask the seller, when was the last time they treated the roads? Have they done any seal coating? Have they done any crack repair? Have they done striping? These are all things that are going to have to add up, and if you don't evaluate, you're going to end up spending that money when you take over the park. Number 2, pay attention to the homes. Again, this might sound obvious, but I can't tell you how important this is. If you're in a park that has 60s and 70s homes, right, pre-HUD, so anything before 1978 was pre-HUD certified, those homes generally are built different than the manufactured homes that are today. And so what you want to do is look at the condition that these homes are in. Pay attention to the home. So things to look at would be check the skirting. Is it in good condition? I would probably remove some skirting and peek underneath just to see what the homes look like underneath. Generally speaking, if you have homes that you own, and that's pretty rare in the West Coast, most often we see homes that are owned by the tenants, but anytime you see homes that are on the older side or deteriorating, understand that at some point you may have to get those homes out and you may have to bring new homes in. It doesn't matter if the homes are owned by the tenants or the park. The reality is, if people own their homes, people die, people sell the homes, at some point you're going to get the homes back. So you really want to know what condition those are in and plan ahead for that, okay? Understand what your plan looks like if you're going to hold this asset for a long term. In a park that we have, we actually brought 5 new homes in. Each time somebody passed away, we would actually either purchase the home from them or we, in one case, actually added 2 spaces where there was 1 space. So the goal is to bring new homes in over time. That's going to increase the longevity of the park. Number 3, I want you to look at the landscaping, but not just the general landscaping. I want you to look at the trees, okay? Again, big ticket item that's going to cost you potentially thousands of dollars, and oftentimes we don't pay enough attention to the trees. There are tons of parks across the country that have beautiful, gorgeous trees, and it adds to the landscape, but the reality is those are also something to be very concerned about depending on the age of the tree, the location of the tree. So I would look at things like, are they close to utility lines? Are there any trees that are actually on top of homes? A lot of cases you'll see trees that are draped over homes, right? Potentially causing issues there. Are there any trees that potentially could fall on a home, right? Are there dead trees? So these are all things to consider, because you're going to want to go in, and most often than not, we see a lot of parks across the country where the trees aren't maintained to the level that they should be. And that can present, again, hazards and also safety concern. The 4th thing that you should pay attention to, obviously, but not obviously, is the utility systems, right? And most of this stuff is underground when I'm speaking about the plumbing or the sewer lines, water lines. But I would do two things. One, I would take a quick peek at the electric pedestals. You don't have to look at all of them, but generally get a sense. Are they in decent condition? Is there rust? Is there anything that presents potentially electrical hazards, right? You're obviously going to want to have an electrician look at that unless you're pretty skilled and know what you're looking at. But the other thing is look at whether or not you have overhead utility lines. So you're either going to have above ground or underground utility lines. And a lot of cases, you're going to see, wires that just kind of hang along houses. They're going to be behind in yards. And so you just want to identify that, figure out what you've got. If you've got a master metered electric park, that's going to be very different than having electric run to each home, but it can be manageable. We owned a park that had master metered electric, and it's perfectly fine. You just need to know what the potential liability is and how you plan for it. And the last one, I think, is one of the most important. It's very overlooked and it's a little nuanced, so I'm going to explain a little bit, but I'll start with a story here. We recently had a park in contract that we were selling as brokers, and when we went down to City Hall, we talked about the park with the City Hall city planners. They immediately knew the park. In fact, it was just across the street from City Hall, so they had been looking at this park for some time. The park was in pretty dilapidated condition. There was a couple single family homes on the property, but all of the homes in the park, all of the manufactured homes, were pretty old. I want to say 60s or 70s homes. And what's interesting is in this park, about 95% of those homes were actually owned by the park. And that means the landlord actually owned them and he was renting the home out plus the space to a tenant. And so what that means is that he or she eventually was going to have to move those homes out if they became so dilapidated to the point where nobody could live in them, right? And that's going to happen. I don't care what anybody says, at some point a home is going to be required to pull out. These homes weren't built to last 150 years, 100 years. And so in this particular park, when we went down to City Hall with the buyer, they talked about it. They said, hey, can you tell us what's going on? What are some things that we need to be concerned about, right? Well, one of the key things that had changed over the years was the fire code. And when you look at the code, it used to not have any specifications when required to setbacks. However, it had changed in recent time. And so the fire code now required any homes that were brought into the park to have a 20-foot setback. Well, the problem is all of these homes that were in the park were right on the property line. And there was really no room to move them around. You can't reconfigure them unless you were going to remove some homes, right? I think in this park there were 50-something lots. So the point was, at some point, if you're going to take over this park, you're going to have to remove homes, because the reality is these homes were in really, really poor condition anyway. And so at some point you're going to want to remove them. You're going to have to remove them. But the challenge will be that anytime you go in to move a new home in, you're actually not going to be able to put it where it used to be because of the new fire code requirements. Therefore, what is going to happen is my thinking is that they are going to lose sites. So what it could be from 52 sites could end up being something like 35 or 40 sites if you end up losing homes over time and not bringing them back in. And so that leads me to the fifth and final thing that you want to be paying attention to, and that is specific codes as it pertains to each county jurisdiction and specific to manufactured housing. There's also things that say whether it's the fire code that changed, whether it's some ordinance specific to manufactured housing. There's also things like code changing where it says, hey, if you bring a new manufactured home in, it can't be any older than a year 2000 home. Well, that's also something to pay attention to. The point is you want to know what your future plans are. You want to know what your future liability is when you have homes come in or out of the park, because I can guarantee you at some point you will have to do that. And it could be that you end up losing spaces because of it, okay? So those are 5 things that I think are super crucial to pay attention to. And if you do all those 5 things, you're gonna be in a great position to ensure that you're buying a mobile home park that's gonna last and be a great community for a long time. So stick around. If you'd like to learn how to underwrite these mobile home parks, I'm gonna throw up another video here. And thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next video.